Hello everyone. How widespread is the python trade in Burkina Faso, and how is this activity linked to the rule of President Ibrahim Traoré? In this video, we explore the historical context, recent developments, and economic implications of this topic in a factual manner, without sensationalism. To understand the role of the python trade in Burkina Faso's economy and its possible association with President Ibrahim Traoré, it is essential to place this issue in the country's historical and economic context. Burkina Faso, a landlocked country in West Africa, has an economy based primarily on agriculture, livestock farming, and mining, particularly gold, which accounts for approximately 80% of export revenues. However, other sectors, such as the exotic pet trade, have emerged as marginal but notable sources of income for some communities. Historically, Burkina Faso, formerly Upper Volta, was marked by a long period of French colonization, from 1896 to 1960. This period shaped an economy dependent on agricultural exports, such as cotton and cereals, with little diversification. After independence, the country experienced periods of political instability, notably under the government of Thomas Sankara, 1983 to 1987, who promoted economic self-sufficiency and a break with colonial influences. This vision of economic autonomy continues to inspire current policies, including under the presidency of Ibrahim Traoré, who took power in September 2022 following a coup d'état. The python trade, although less publicized than gold or agriculture, is an established business in some regions of Burkina Faso. Pythons, particularly ball pythons, Python regius, are prized on the international exotic pet market due to their colorful patterns and relative docility. This trade is part of a long tradition of wildlife exploitation in West Africa, where snakes are sometimes used in cultural practices but are also captured to meet the growing global demand for exotic pets. According to zoological studies, West Africa, including Burkina Faso, is a key region for reptile exports, with thousands of pythons captured each year for the international market, particularly in the United States and Europe. Under Traoré's presidency, Burkina Faso adopted an approach focused on economic sovereignty, marked by the nationalization of certain industries, such as gold mines, and a reduction in dependence on international financial institutions, such as the IMF and the World Bank. This context led to an exploration of new sources of income, including unconventional sectors such as the exotic animal trade. However, there is no direct or official evidence personally linking Ibrahim Traoré to wealth derived specifically from the python trade. Accounts suggesting such a connection often appear to be amplified by media campaigns or online speculation, sometimes relayed by viral videos or social media posts, without verifiable basis. The python trade, while generating income for some local communities, remains marginal compared to dominant sectors such as gold or agriculture. According to reports from the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, the reptile trade in West Africa is regulated by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora sites, which imposes quotas to prevent overexploitation. Burkina Faso, as a signatory, must comply with these regulations, which limits the potential scale of this trade. Since Ibrahim Traoré came to power in September 2022, Burkina Faso has undergone significant transformations, both politically and economically. Traoré, 37, became the world's youngest head of state after leading a coup against interim president Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. His rhetoric, focused on self-sufficiency and breaking away from Western influences, resonated with African youth seeking sovereignty. However, claims of personal wealth linked to the python trade require careful analysis, as they are often based on unverified information. Economically, Traoré's government implemented ambitious reforms. In 2024, Burkina Faso recorded a record cereal production of nearly 6 million tons, strengthening food security. The nationalization of 2 gold mines, previously managed by a British company, and the creation of the Société de Participation Minière du Burkina, SOPAMIB, signaled a desire to control national resources. In April 2024, Prime Minister Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo announced that the government planned to nationalize more industrial mines to maximize revenues. These initiatives resulted in the collection of more than 8 tons of gold in 2024, primarily from artisanal sources, and the establishment of a national gold reserve for the first time in the country's history. Regarding the python trade, there have been no recent official announcements directly linking this sector to Traoré or his government. However, social media posts, sometimes amplified by AI-generated videos, have suggested that the reptile trade has contributed to the president's enrichment. These claims, often relayed without concrete evidence, are part of a broader media campaign touting Traoré's reforms. For example, a viral video from 2025 claiming that Traoré had struck a $14 billion grain deal with India was identified as a deepfake, illustrating the prevalence of misinformation surrounding his presidency. Diplomatically, Traoré has reoriented Burkina Faso's alliances. In 2023, he expelled French troops and ended Operation Sabre, marking a break with the former colonial power. The country has moved closer to Russia, with the reopening of the Russian embassy and military cooperation agreements. In May 2025, Traoré participated in celebrations in Moscow for the 80th anniversary of the victory over Nazi Germany, strengthening ties with Russia. Furthermore, Burkina Faso, along with Mali and Niger, formed the Alliance of Sahel States, ESA, leaving ECOWAS in 2024, a decision criticized for its impact on regional cooperation. In August 2025, a delegation from the Sultanate of Oman, led by Abdul Salam bin Mohammed al-Murshidi, met with Traoré to discuss investments in the mining and agricultural sectors, but no mention of the python trade was reported. These developments underscore the government's focus on natural resources, but without any direct connection to the reptiles. The python trade in Burkina Faso, while it exists, raises several economic, environmental, and media issues. From an economic perspective, this sector remains minor compared to gold mining or agriculture, which dominate the Burkinabe economy. Ball pythons, although prized on the international exotic pet market, are subject to strict regulations through CITES, which limits their overall economic impact. The revenue generated by this trade primarily benefits local communities and intermediaries, but there is no credible data suggesting that these activities directly enrich Ibrahim Traoré or his entourage. Narratives linking the president to supposed wealth from pythons appear to be amplified by disinformation campaigns, often orchestrated via AI-generated videos or social media posts. These campaigns, sometimes supported by foreign actors, aim to reinforce Traoré's image as a Pan-African leader, but they blur the line between fact and fiction. Environmentally, the python trade raises sustainability issues. The intensive capture of reptiles can threaten wild populations, particularly if CITES quotas are not respected. Burkina Faso, facing challenges such as insecurity and desertification, must balance the exploitation of its wildlife resources with the preservation of biodiversity. However, Traoré's government has not publicly addressed this issue, focusing more on the mining and agricultural sectors. Politically, Traoré's association with alleged python wealth reflects the complexity of his popularity. His anti-Western rhetoric and economic reforms, such as the nationalization of mines, have attracted widespread support among many young Africans, but also attracted criticism for his authoritarian style. The spread of exaggerated narratives on social media, often amplified by Russian or local actors, reinforces his image as a revolutionary leader, but also fuels disinformation. For example, allegations of free education or healthcare policies attributed to Traoré have been debunked as false or predating his term in office. Finally, the focus on sectors like the python trade distracts from Burkina Faso's major challenges, such as insecurity. Since 2022, violence linked to Islamist groups has tripled, with 17,775 deaths reported, and more than 60% of the territory is outside state control. These challenges limit the government's ability to invest in secondary economic sectors like the reptile trade. The python trade in Burkina Faso, while real, remains marginal and has no direct connection to Ibrahim Traoré. Between economic reforms and security challenges, the future will tell how the country will balance its resources and public communication in a complex regional context.